everybody, it's Miss Toth here. I'm going to read you a story. It's called Rumplestiltskin. This is another version of the story, and this one in particular won another medal here. Rumplestiltskin, you probably have heard of Rumplestiltskin. He was in one of the Shrek movies, but it is one of my most favorite movies or stories of all time. And I used to love listening to it all the time when I was your age, to the point that I think I actually read through 2 books, which means I destroyed them. So what I'm going to do is, while we are doing this story, the activity that goes with it is where does the story take place? That's the setting. Who are the characters in the story? What happened in the story? What is the problem and what is the solution? There is a worksheet that's attached next to the story of Rumpelstiltskin that you can click and print out. And if you don't want to print it out, all you have to do is maybe get mom and dad to make boxes for you so you can fill it out as you go. So this one is one that I'm going to do with you, and we're going to talk about it as I read. The next story you can try on your own. Okay? Here it is. This is the story of Rumpelstiltskin, and there is Rumpelstiltskin right here. This is a weaving loom right here. This is the same kind of weaving loom that was used when Sleeping Beauty got pricked. Same idea. And here is the story of, this is the miller's daughter. Once there was a poor miller who had a beautiful daughter. Do we have any characters that have shown up yet? Yes, so we have the miller and we have the daughter. So what I've done is I've got 2 whiteboards. I've got one whiteboard where the story takes place, the setting. Then I've written the character, and all the characters I'm going to put down underneath where it says characters. And then over here, I just ruined the board a bit, but it says what happened, or what's the story about, the problem, and the solution. Okay, so the miller's daughter. On his way to town one day, the miller encountered the king. I'm going to write down king because he's shown up. I don't know if he's going to be important, but he's mentioned in the story, so I'm going to write it down. The miller encountered the king. Wanting to impress him, the miller said, I have a daughter who knows the art of spinning straw into gold. Now the king had a passion for gold, and such an art intrigued him, so he ordered the miller to send his daughter to the castle straight away. When the girl was brought before him, the king led her to a room that was filled with straw. He gave her the spools and the spinning wheel and said, you may spin all night, but if you do not spin the straw into gold by morning, you will have to die. With that, he locked the door, and the girl was left inside alone. So there's the miller on his small pony, and there's the king, and here's the poor girl that is instructed to spin all the straw into the room into gold. So right now, the story is, there's the setting for the story. The setting of the story is where the miller's daughter is right now. So she is inside the castle. Or you can even be more specific. You can say she's inside a room in the castle. And that's right now, that's where the story is going to take place. Okay, so that's where the story is taking place. So do we have a problem already? Let's find out. We're going to find out. There sat the poor miller's daughter, without the slightest idea how anyone could spin straw into gold. For the life of her, she did not know what to do. She grew more and more frightened, and then she began to weep. Okay, so we have a problem here. She's really, really sad. Her problem is her father has told the king that she could spin straw into gold. Can she actually do that? Can you do that? That's an impossible task. So the problem is the daughter must spin straw. So straw is just dried grass. Oh, whoopsies, I wrote stray. Whoopsies, spelling mistake. Straw into gold, or she will, what did the king say? She will die. What a nice king. Boy, oh boy. So that's a problem, right? So the daughter must spin straw into in gold, or she will die. Oh my goodness. So let's find out what happens next. Suddenly, so the girl's crying, the door sprang open and a tiny man stepped in. Good evening, Mistress Miller, he says. Why are you sobbing? Oh, the girl cried, I must spin the straw into gold and I don't know how. So there's her problem. She doesn't know how. She doesn't know how. So maybe we can write that here. She doesn't know how. Sorry, and I'm squishing that into the bottom. So she doesn't know how. And here he is. Here's this girl. Oh, she's so sad. Oh no. And then here he comes. Good evening. What's the problem? Let's find out what happens next. What will you give me if I spin it for you? The little man asked. My necklace, answered the girl. The little man took her necklace and sat down at the spinning wheel. He pulled 3 times, whirl, 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 and the spool was wound full of gold thread. He fitted another spool on and whirl, whirl, whirl. 3 pulls, and that was 2 full. And so in the morning, when all the straw was spun and all the spools, they were all filled with gold. And there you can see all the gold threads down below in the corner. And there she is. She looks so relieved. Do you think she thinks her life is being spared now? What would you do if you were the king? When the king came at sunrise, he was amazed and delighted, but all the gold had only made him greedier. So he led the miller's daughter to a larger room filled with straw, and he ordered her to spin that straw before dawn as well, or she will die. Oh my goodness. So this is the second time. This is still the same problem. Still the same problem. The girl did not know what to do. She began to weep. Once more the door opened and the little man stepped in. What will you give me if I spin this straw into gold for you? He asked. The ring on my finger, answered the girl, and the little man took her ring. Then he set the spinning wheel whirling, and before night was over he had spun that straw into gleaming gold as well. Poor girl. So this is the same problem. So there's actually small solutions that happen both times. So both times we could say the solution to the first 2 problems was that the little man came in to help her. Let's find out what happens next. What do you think the king is going to say now? Shortly after sunrise, the king returned. Piles of golden spools glowed in the morning light. The king rejoiced at the sight of so much gold, but he still was not satisfied. He led the miller's daughter to a third, even bigger room that was piled high with straw. Tonight you must spin this straw too, ordered the king, and if you succeed, you shall become my wife. Because he thought, I cannot find a richer woman than this. Would you want to marry a king like this? Is that a good deal for her? I don't know. Okay, so third time. So she's already given her necklace and she's given her ring. So now the third time she's got to spin straw into gold. When the king had left, the little man appeared for the third time. What will you give me if I spin this for you again? He asked. I have nothing else, said the girl. Then promise that when you become queen, your first child will belong to me. The miller's daughter, she gasped. How could she promise such a thing? Then she thought, but who knows whether I'll even have a child? And she can think of no other reason to save herself. So she promised, and the little man once spun all of this straw into gold. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. I'm just looking at the characters, and we forgot to add somebody. We've got the miller, the daughter, the king, and we forgot to write down the little man because he seems very important. He keeps showing up in the story. So we're going to put the little man. The miller, have we seen him at all? We only saw him at the beginning. So he would be like a lesser character. Who do you think the bad guy is in the story? So who do you think the antagonist is? The bad guy. Do you think it's the little man right now, or do you think it's the king? Who is the protagonist? Who is the hero or the heroine of the story? The good guy. Think about it. The story can be a bit tricky. It depends on how you think about it. When the king came in the morning and found everything he had wished for, he married the beautiful miller's beautiful daughter, and she became queen. So, a year passed. Oh, what happened? In a year, what do you think happened? Yes. The queen brought a handsome baby boy into the world. She gave scarcely a thought to the little man, but one day he appeared very suddenly in the room. Now give me what you promised me, he demanded. The queen pleaded with the little man. He could take all the royal treasure if he would only let her keep her child. But her pleading was in vain. Then she began to weep so piteously that at last the little man was moved. I will give you 3 days. He said, by the end of that time, if you know my name, you can keep your child. A lot of threes in this story. So here it is. Here's a beautiful baby. And he shows up again, that little man. So now she's got a second problem. So the first problem was spinning the straw into the gold. Oh my goodness. And we can even split this in half. We can say the solution to that first one, to that first problem was that she made promises to the little man. So we can say that was kind of like the first set of problems. So she had to spin the straw, and if she didn't, she would die. So that could be the first problem. I'm just going to draw a wiggly line up here, and then I'm going to do more problems up at the top. So I hope you can see what I've done. So here I go again. It's a bit messy, so I'm going to do P, and I'm going to do S. So now she promises that he can have the baby. So now the little man wants her baby, right? So she has a problem, and she has to guess his name in 3 days. So so here's the other problem. Now, after the solution of the third time, now he's come back a year later and he wants the baby. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? So if I give you 3 days, by the end of the third day, let's see. So here's what's going to happen. Long into the night the queen sat, and through the next day thinking over all the names that she had ever heard. That evening the little man returned. Beginning with Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, the queen recited every name that she knew, one after the other. But at each one the little man replied, "That is not my name." And there it is. Oh, she's so worried. That's not it. What are we going to do with that baby? She's thinking so hard. The second day the queen had inquiries made in town, searching for new names. When the little man came that evening, she posed the strangest, most unusual ones to her. She tried so many names. She tried Nico and Dohu and Nick and James. She tried Coral and Scarlet and Annika and Zoe. She tried Navarre Singh and Ishan and Sean and Jacob. And none of these were the right names. So she tried even more strange and unusual names, like Beastie Ribs and Leg of Ram and String Bones, but he was only to reply, "That is not my name." Uh-oh. Now we're down to the third. Hello, Elizabeth.
It's not Elizabeth.
Isla, your legs out. Oh, hi, Everett. Okay. So now we're down to the third night. So now she's very, very worried, very worried. Here we go. Now the queen grew truly frightened, and she sent her most faithful servant into the woods to look for the little man. The servant searched through thickets and over clearings deep into the forest. And there she goes. So here's the servant. She's leaving the castle. And here's the traveling bit. Look at there she is through the woods. Can you see her in the dark woods? There she is way in the back and then up in the front, and she travels and travels and travels, and at last she spies the little man. He was riding on a cooking spoon around a great fire and crying out, "I brew my beer, I break my loaves, and soon the queen's own son I'll claim. Oh, lucky me, for no one knows that Rumplestiltskin is my name." The servant made her way back as fast as she could manage, and at midday reached the castle. You can imagine how glad the queen was when she heard that name. Later that evening, the little man arrived. "Now, Mrs. Queen," he said, "do you know my name, or shall I take the child?" So the queen asked him, "Is your name Will?" "No." "Is your name Phil?" "No." "Is your name Tom?" "No." "In that case, is your name Rumplestiltskin?" "The devil told you that! The devil told you that!" shrieked Rumplestiltskin, and in a fury he jumped on his cooking spoon and flew out the window. Oh boy. Oh boy. And he was never heard from again. The end. Now, the little man wants her baby. What was the solution? What happened? Did he get the baby in the end? No. Why not? Okay. The servant heard Rumpelstiltskin's name. So we write, the servant found out his name. And that's it. So that's where I would put. So this is an interesting story. There's actually two problems. One problem ends up becoming an even bigger problem a year later. And so the servant finds his name. And so what happens at the very, very end. So this is really great. So that what happened part of the story, part of it is the problem and the solution. So what we did miss is we didn't talk about the very, very beginning where the miller sells his daughter, gives his daughter to the king. We didn't say that. So the miller gives his daughter to the king, and he tells the king, my daughter can spin straw into gold, which she can't. So 3 nights in a row, she has to spin straw into gold, and the little man comes to rescue her. And in return, she gives him things. And the 3rd time, she promises to give her the baby. Then she gets married to the king, and a year later, she has a baby. And she forgot about the little man, but he comes back, and he wants the baby. And then the 3rd night, she finds that the queen says, I know your name. And that was the trick. So if she could figure out this weird name of this guy, then he doesn't take her baby. And that's the end. So she lives happily ever after with her baby. I don't know if she lives happily ever after with the king, but definitely she's got her son. So when we go back here, we can go back to the setting. And the main setting in this story is really the castle. They go into the woods and they can hear the Rumpelstiltskin, but most of the story takes place inside this castle. And we could talk about, we could add as another lesser character, we can add the servant, because she's the one that sort of rescues the queen by finding out the name, right? So that's basically all you need to do is find whatever the problem is and the solution and go from there. I hope you like the story. This was one of my favorites. Thanks for listening. Bye.